Welcome back, beautiful souls, to another episode of The Reclamation. I am Paula Collins, your host, Magdalene Priestess, Reiki Master, Intuitive Sound Healer, and Spirituality Mentor. And I'm so excited for this episode because we are going to enter one of the most sacred portals of the year, Samhain. Samhain is the ancient Celtic New Year, the festival that marks the midpoint between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. It is a time of ending and beginning, death and rebirth, and honoring of those who came before us. So take a deep breath with me. Inhale the crispness of autumn and exhale what no longer needs to be carried. We are standing at the threshold between worlds, between cycles, between who we have been and who we are becoming. So let's get into this beautiful, beautiful Sabbath that I'm so excited to speak with you about. And we're going to start with a little education. Samhain is more than just the origin of Halloween. It's a spiritual new year of our ancestors. It's when the final harvest has been gathered. And now the fields grow quiet. Nature begins its beautiful, long-awaited exhale and begins her sacred descent into stillness. It's a time of symbolic death, not something to fear, but something to honor. For just as the trees release their leaves, we too are called to release what has completed its purpose. Things like old identities, false narratives, outdated patterns, and the masks that we have all outgrown. Samhain reminds us that death is not an ending, it's a transformation. It's the fertile darkness that nourishes new life to come. And it is this beautiful season when the veil between the worlds, between the physical and the spiritual, becomes translucent. Messages come in in our dreams. Signs begin to appear in flickering candles, in whispers of wind, in the quiet knowing of our hearts. And this is the perfect time for divination, for ancestral work, and inner communion. And these are beautiful practices that helps us listen to the voices of those beyond the veil and to the deeper voice within. Our ancestors are closer now than ever. Their love, their lessons, and even their resilience flow in our blood. When we call their names, when we light a candle in honor, they rise within us. And in that remembrance, we are never alone. Samhain is about this beautiful journey into the shadow. And it marks the season of some of the dark goddesses. Hecate, Cerridwen, Persephone, and the Morrigan. And these guides, or should I say these goddesses, guide us through the underworld of our own soul to meet what we've avoided, to witness the shadow with compassion, and to reclaim the wisdom hidden there. Because shadow work is a sacred reclamation. It's not about judgment or shame. It's about this beautiful truth, bringing love to the places within us that have long been starved of it. And it's in this descent, it's through this descent that we remember that the darkness is not our enemy. It's our teacher, our womb, and our gateway to rebirth. So many people get confused about the dark goddesses because we've been taught to fear them. We've been taught that they're evil, that we shouldn't speak about them, that we shouldn't speak to them, because if we do, something bad is going to happen. But what I want to do here is I want to talk a little bit about each one to give you an understander of who they are. So I'm going to begin with Hecate. And Hecate in the Greek is known as the keeper of the keys, the goddess of magic, and the guardian of the crossroads. She is the ancient torchbearer who stands at the threshold between the worlds. And she is the guide of our souls, the one who helps us to navigate transitions between life and death, shadow and light, endings and beginnings. And at Samhain in particular, her presence is strong. She reminds us that every ending opens a door to a new path. She holds the keys to all the realms, to the seen and the unseen. And she invites us to stand at our own crossroads with courage and with clarity. Then there's Ceridwen, and she is a Welsh or Celtic goddess who is known as the enchantress, the alchemist, and the keeper of the cauldron of transformation. She is this beautiful, great vessel of transformation and rebirth. She symbolizes this magical alchemy that occurs when we surrender what no longer serves us into the sacred fire and allows it to become wisdom. And this cauldron represents the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. She reminds us that transformation is not a punishment, it's a sacred initiation. It's one that requires patience, stillness, and faith in the unseen process. Then there is another one of my favorite Greek goddesses, Persephone. She is the maiden and the queen. She is the queen of the underworld. She is the soul's descent. And her Greek myth reminds us that the descent is part of the soul's evolution. She, as we know from the myth, was abducted by Hades and taken into the underworld. She begins as this innocent maiden, but she emerges as a powerful queen who is sovereign, wise, and balanced between both worlds. And in her transformation, she shows us that our descent into the underworld of our emotions, our pain and shadow, is what ultimately awakens our power and our wisdom. And then we have the Morrigan, and she is an Irish goddess, and she is the goddess of the battle, the shapeshifter, the sovereign one. And she is the fierce goddess of prophecy. She embodies the raw power of transformation through destruction and the breaking down of what must fall so the renewal may rise. At Samhain, the Morrigan teaches us that shadow work requires courage, boundaries, and truth. And she reminds us that reclaiming our power means facing the parts of ourselves we've been taught to fear or suppress, like the rage, the grief, or desire, and to allow those things, those beautiful parts of ourselves, to become something that is so incredibly sacred once again. So at this point, you might be wondering, oh, Paula, are you going to tell me how I get to honor this sacred Sabbath? Because maybe you're not familiar with it. Or maybe because it's so closely related with Halloween, you've blocked it out. Or been raised with this fear to not embrace it. So let's talk about a few things you can do. First of all, you can create a beautiful ancestral altar. In fact, I'm getting ready to do mine. And ancestral altars are where we gather photos, heirlooms of our loved ones who have passed beyond the veil. And we put them out in a spot where we can honor them and see them daily. You can add beautiful candles and offering like apples, bread, or wine. You can speak their names. You can thank them for their guidance, and you can whisper your love across the veil. And it's such a beautiful thing to have this. And did you know that if you cut an apple, not down the center how we normally do, but if you cut it horizontally across the center, you will see that there are 5 seeds inside each one. And it makes a beautiful star. And each one of these seeds represents one of the 5 elements, which is earth, water, fire, air, and spirit. You can even slice your apple open so you can see that while it's sitting on your altar. Another beautiful way to honor this Sabbath is to hold a fire or candle ceremony. I love this one, and it can be something that you do on your altar. I love candle ceremonies. I love to build a big bonfire and celebrate. And in the ceremony, you can write down what you're ready to release. A habit, a fear, or a pattern. You can write it on a piece of paper, you can write it on a bay leaf, whatever it is, just write it down. And then as you get ready to burn it, now if you're using candles, make sure you have a fireproof container. I have my little cast iron cauldron that I use indoors. But if you're outdoors, you can walk up to the fire and stand there for a moment and just think about this habit, this fear, or this pattern, and how it no longer serves you, and how you want to allow it to be transmuted into something that is so much more loving and nourishing, right? Because when you burn it, this is an act of alchemical transmutation. And after you're done, you can have some sort of offering that you put in the fire or throw into your cauldron where you burned your paper or your bay leaf. If you're indoors, you can then light a beautiful white candle symbolizing renewal and the spark of rebirth within the darkness. Remember, it's the rebirth within the darkness. We can't have rebirth without it. Another beautiful ancestral tradition is to set up what they call a dumb supper. And what this means is you prepare a meal, and as you set your table, you leave an empty place all set up with a plate and silverware and a napkin and something to drink for your ancestors. And while you're eating, you eat in silence and you tune into your heart. Maybe before you begin eating, you offer up a prayer to that loved one. Maybe you take whatever you put on your Samhain altar, a photo or an heirloom, and you include that on your table. And just listen to your heart. Feel into it. And then as I clean up from dinner, when I do it, I leave out a piece of bread with a little bit of honey on it and half of the apple that was on my altar on the plate. And I have a candle lit all night, and I just allow it to sit there so that my loved one knows that they are always welcome at my table. Another ritual that's fun to do for Samhain is divination or dream work. So breaking out your tarot or your oracle cards, using pendulums, scrying in water, or using a flame. I like to do it with flames, and ask, what wisdom is ready to be revealed as I step into this new cycle? So we ask that question. And then if you're going to use tarot or oracle cards, ask the question and then lay out your cards and look at the meaning and look deeper into that meaning. Look at the symbology, look at the picture. Don't just rely on the guidebook. Use your own intuition. We all have it. And finally, connecting with nature. And I think this is one of the most beautiful things we could do at any of the Sabbats, but especially at Samhain, because as you walk among the trees, or maybe you're out barefoot, you can feel the leaves beneath your feet. Or if you really stand there, you can feel the soft decay beneath your feet. You can see the plants that are starting to go into slumber. And maybe while you're out there, you grab a couple of fallen leaves or acorns for your altar that remind you of the cycles of death, feeding life, because that is what it's all about. And it is such a beautiful thing that we get to experience, that we get to be a part of, that we get to enjoy. Because it is such a beautiful time. You know, when we're thinking about this veil between the worlds, it's mystical, it's magical. It's honoring this boundary that becomes thin so we can speak more closely and more intimately with our loved ones. And we may receive more messages if we really take the time to sit and listen. And many times, with this thinning of the veil, we have a bigger, deep intuitive awakening. And we can remember our soul's lineage, our soul's history. And isn't that a beautiful gift? And as we take the time to contemplate our ancestors, we can remember their wisdom, their love, and their pain, because that all flows through our bloodline, through our DNA. And when we take the time to acknowledge their sacrifices, to heal generational wounds, and to express gratitude, something in us changes. And on a spiritual level, this connection that we have with the other side strengthens our sense of belonging. And if we allow ourselves to take the journey that I talked about and do some shadow work, to face our fears and the grief and the parts of us that we've buried, when we go through this rebirth, we reclaim our power and our wisdom. And that helps us to mirror what is going on in nature's journey underground. So my beautiful friends, my beautiful, beautiful friends, give yourself the gift of Samhain. Give yourself that beautiful gift, because it teaches us how to live fully, that we must honor the dying, not as a loss, but as this sacred transformation. Because what dies returns in a new form. And the things that end clear space for new light. So as you light your candle, I want you to remember that you are the bridge between the worlds. You are the keeper of the ancestral flame. You are both the ending and the beginning. And you are the dark soil and the first spark of spring. And I want to leave you with a beautiful Samhain blessing. So if you will take a moment to close your eyes and place your hands over your heart center. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And just listen closely. May the veil be soft between worlds on Samhain night. And may the whispers of our ancestors find their way gently to your heart. May you walk with courage through the dark, trusting the unseen hands that guide your steps and the quiet wisdom rising from your bones. May you lay to rest what has served its time, old fears, old names, old stories, and offer them to the sacred fire of transformation. May Hecate's torch light your path. Cerridwen's cauldron stir your becoming. Persephone's descent remind you of your strength, and the Morrigan's wings shield your truth. May you remember that endings are not loss, but fertile ground of beginning. That death is but the turning of the wheel, and within the dark, the seeds of your rebirth are stirring. And as you journey through the sacred light, may your heart be filled with peace, your spirit with remembrance, and your soul with radiant light. Blessed Samhain, dear one, may the ancestors walk beside you, and may you carry the flame of their love forward into the dawn of your becoming. And I invite you now to whisper this to yourself. I honor the cycles. I trust the darkness. I carry the light within. And so it is said, and so it is done. Blessed be. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a friend. Please share it with everyone you know. Let's help others learn the beauty of this incredibly beautiful Sabbath. Let's bring others into this beautiful circle of light. And if you feel called to share your thoughts in the comment section, or find me on Instagram and share your thoughts at Serene Wellness with Paula. May your ancestors walk beside you, your heart be open to their whispers, and your spirit rest in the beauty of transformation. And until next time, my beloveds, wishing you so much love.